This topic is communication. We have Newman alum Dylan Hannum with us. He's a marketing administrator for Bath Kitchen and Tile Center. Communication is a really interesting one for everybody, right? We all have different communication styles. We have different communication mediums, and he's going to talk about them, what he deals with professionally, and then personally too, because he deals with people all ages, genders, different roles, and they all have different ways of communicating. So, Dylan?
All right. Well, so there's internal and external communications with everything, and if you want to get in conversations about that with a company, for example, internal communications are extremely important in letting people know what's going on. So, for example, with my company, we do granite and stone countertops. They're constantly changing, so it's extremely important for the countertop shop to let us know and let our sales team know, hey, we're not able to sell this product anymore, we can't get it, so
Right.
don't be giving it to these other people. But with external communications, that's where marketing really kind of comes into a play of what you offer, what we have, what makes us different, and everything like that. So that's really on the professional side, for internal and external. And then for your own personal life, it kind of gets into, with internal communications, more so for me is your internal group of friends. So your really close-knit friends that you have, having understanding, and that's really easy. And a lot of people develop that at a younger age, in which you share a lot. Most people have one or two really good close best friends.
Right.
You share everything with, and then it gets harder as you get further apart from that inner circle.
Right.
With those external communications, it's you kind of perceiving and giving off what you do, and how you kind of go about everything. So when you're in a networking event or in a job interview or even in class, being involved, talking, giving out ideas and things of that nature.
Sure. So, one question I have for you is pertaining to being a marketer. You talk about external. One of the things that I think you definitely deal with is vendors, right? Dealing with vendors, dealing with people who you're essentially marketing to. How do you deal with them differently than you deal with anybody else?
So with vendors, it's actually kind of interesting how we get into it with vendors. So it's more so of a personable level. There's not, we don't advertise out to vendors,
Right.
and try to, bring in their business. But you really have to be friendly with them and get to know them better. So with our reps that we have, I'm very friendly with them, I'm personal with them, and I really have to have an open communication policy with them. So, we might be able to get better discounts or get, a little bit heads up on news or whatever it may be. There's actually an advertising channel that we use who I will leave unnamed at the moment. We were a part of a contest. It's a very major contest in southern Delaware for this. And just because I had communicated, really well with them and I've gotten to know them a lot better, I was given news that we had won several categories in that contest before the contest is even finished being counted.
Right.
So it's really important to,
Yeah.
you get a little bit inside news with that, and it's really important to have open communication.
Sure. So let's go to communicating mediums, right? So you have
Okay.
cell phone, text messaging, phone calls, emails, right?
Right.
Social media. I mean, all these different things. How do you figure out what's the best medium to use in communicating? And this could be internal or external.
Well, it all depends on who you're trying to communicate with. So, if I'm trying to communicate with coworkers, normally I'll either do an email or a phone call. Whether it depends on how open they are, and it depends on the individual.
Right.
I know I have a couple of coworkers who the best way to get to them is text them. They'll always pop out their phone, shoot out a text. It could take them 8 years to get back to an email. If you're dealing with a vendor or a customer, you really have to ask them and figure out, what works best. I have a vendor who, believe it or not, he prefers LinkedIn messaging. That's his go-to.
Right.
And as weird as it is, that's what I use. Because if I shoot him an email or if I call him, he's not going to answer.
Right.
As I said, it's really depending on the individual.
Yeah. So I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, it does depend on the individual because they all have different needs and they're all different places, right? So I just want to highlight, because this is kind of breaking news for people, is it's actually not about you, right? Like, it's not about what works best for you. So if you're only texting and someone's like, I don't look at my text until 9 p.m., and they're a phone call kind of person, you got to call them. So you got to meet that person. So I just wanted to kind of bring that to the news. With communication, right, comes a lot of positives and negatives. What are some that you see?
Some positive with communication is, it makes things gel a little bit better. Things move a lot faster if you have good communication skills and if you're really communicating with people. And that's really what drives business. And it can also help you when you get into a sticky situation. So, for example, if you're at work and a problem occurs, if you didn't say anything about it and then it really gets bad and then you bring it up, that's a problem.
Great
it
example.
Really falls on your shoulders,
Yeah.
and it's just, it looks bad for you.
That's a great example.
If the moment it comes in, you make someone aware of it, whoever your supervisor or whatever department needs to know, you make them aware of it. You don't bring them into it. You just say, hey, just letting you know, this is what's going on. I'm dealing with it currently. If you have any suggestions, please let me know.
Yeah. Helps kind of alleviate that part.
Exactly. And then if it does happen to really implode or whatever it may be, they're already made aware of the situation, so everyone's minds are kind of already there.
Right. Now, what are some negatives?
So some negatives with communications. If you get extremely busy and you're really good with communicating with people, or you're really bad with communicating with people, it can become stressful. So a little bit of an example for that would be, I've fallen behind before in previous jobs in which I've just had a really difficult day or week and things just kind of pile up, and then I lose communication with that. And with that, it really hurts where I'm going with it. And if I'm trying to get a hold of someone else, as a separate thing here, if you're trying to get a hold of someone else and they have bad communication skills, it really holds you up. So, for example, with myself, with a vendor of ours, we were trying to get a billboard together. And I was trying to get it designed and up, and the vendor for the billboard company just was not contacting me back. They were horrible with communications, and that also leads into the fact that I didn't fully know what communication was best for them. They then eventually told me that texting and calling on their cell phone was best. Don't call their office. Don't email them. Or anything like that. But that was how I thought they would go about it. So I learned my lesson there.
Right. So, oddly enough, Dylan did a great job of communicating this to you. As students, you have to understand this going into your internship. And I think the last question, especially the pros and cons of good and bad communication, is something that you guys can really take out of this when you're going into your internship, even applying or interviewing for a job, and then actually working that job. So thank you, Dylan.
You're welcome.